Hey everyone! Welcome one and all again to another episode of the Kuyas Korner. I am your fellow Kuya, Kuya Fernando, along with Kuya Robert and Kuya Bryan. EJ's not here in front of the camera. He's actually our floor director right now. Show your hand, EJ, just to say hi. Yep, that's EJ's hand, brought to you by the corner.
He's
All right.
Freddy.
Huh?
He's Freddy from iCarly.
Oh yeah, he's our Freddy.
Oh.
Right. We have a very special treat for y'all to end Filipino American History Month. We have a special guest reserved right here for us. Our guest tonight, or today, whatever time of the day, whatever, is known to have 1,000 titles. He is an organizer with years of community and worker organizing under his belt. He's also a teacher with 10 years of teaching in Westmore High School. He's a rapper. He's also a gamer. He's not that bad in Call of Duty, believe it or not. So please help me welcome to the corner, Mr. Joal Truong-Vargas. Woo!
How's it going? Happy Halloween, everybody.
It's Pedro Parker.
Pedro Parker.
Pedro Parker
in the house
is here today.
Pandesal time.
Pandesal Parker.
All right. How you doing, Mr. Vargas?
I'm doing all right. Doing great. Just had a full days of teaching. Yep. And now I'm here at the Kuyas Korner.
Nice.
Probably the oldest Kuya in the room.
The elder Kuya.
The elder Kuya. More like the Mano.
Manong Kuya.
No, not yet.
All right, so for today's topic, we're going to talk about one of the biggest scams that any young person can ever fall on. Spending $20,000 just to get a fancy calligraphy to place on their wall. It's college. Talk about college. We're all, three of us are all college students, and Mr. Vargas came from college. So we're gonna talk about our experiences and what we learned and what we loved about it. So for our check-in question, for all of y'all, I want to ask which college you're from, and what was your major, or what is your major, and was there any significant factor you want to share in how you chose your major? Starting with Right.
I chose my major. First of all, I go to Skyline College right now. My major is going to be nursing, hopefully. Doing pretty well in that so far. Majority of why I chose it's mostly because of family. Taking care of my dad, my mom, they're very old, so that basically summed it up, to be honest.
Oh, and you're Filipino.
Oh, that too. That too.
It's a very significant criteria to
Yeah.
Yeah.
That too.
Yeah.
Robert.
So, kind of surprising, but I'm from Skyline College. I am a computer science major, unfortunately, and I am transferring soon. It's pretty fun. I don't know why I prioritize computer science. It's like, oh yeah, code, cool. Mm-hmm. But yeah, it's pretty fun for now.
Yeah. For now.
It's mostly the goal is mostly to get money, and yeah, basically it. Yeah,
money.
Yeah, money. Basically,
Get that money.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, basically.
Yeah. All right. How about you, Vargas?
Myself, back in the Bronze Age when I was in college, San Francisco State University, I was a student in the creative writing department. And so my formal major is in creative writing. And it took me about 4 years to figure that out. So for the first 4 years of college, I was an undeclared, which was the most popular major in the year 2000. And so I took a degree in creative writing. And when I found ethnic studies, and we'll talk about that a little bit later, I also minored in Asian American studies. So that's kind of my track.
Yes. Believe it or not, I too am from Skyline College.
What?
What?
That's
No
crazy.
way.
The plot thickens. So yeah, and my major is political science. Growing up, I loved history, and I just always thought that history was like one of those subjects where I can really understand the curriculum. And I was like, you know what? I understand it. Might as well get some money out of it, right? So I decided on history first, but then the more I got involved with the community here in San Mateo County, the more I realize that the political issues of our community is very, very critical right now. It's in a critical stage, and I decided to take political science to kind of gather that, I guess, academic skills and apply it to integral parts of the community. I mean, also it's a compromise because my mom wanted me to become a lawyer. She was like, if you're gonna study political science, just become a lawyer. I'm like, I can't argue, mom. I break down easily. So I decided to just go with political science. So yeah, thanks guys for that check-in. So yeah, college. Was college ever part of your plan at all when it comes to like figuring out how your future was gonna look like 5 years after high school or 10 years within your 30s? Like, was college ever a significant issue?
Brian, you can take this question first.
I would say it was always part of the plan to go through college, but finding my purpose, I would say,
Right.
was the hard part.
Mm.
Like finding what I like we said, early 2000s were like undeclared mostly, and I felt like that was where I was for the last 3 years after graduating high school, and then deciding on nursing really helped. Mostly because I was more passionate about it, to be honest. How about you?
Yeah, I wish I had that passion. When I got out of high school, so I've only been in the country for like 3 years. So like going here was never really part of my plan. If you asked me like 5 years ago, I would never have imagined like I'm going to the U.S. Like after Kuwait, because I was born and raised in Kuwait. It was straight to Philippines. That's basically it. And funny enough, the only reason why I picked computer science is because I watched Mr. Robot.
What's Mr. Robot?
That is a good
It's
show.
like a show where it's a bunch of hackers. Like it's not even like, yeah, Rami Malek. That's
Oh.
how I discovered Rami Malek. Like he was pretty good in that show.
Oh,
But yeah, it's like, oh, code, cool, right? But as it progressed, it kind of looked cool. After doing some internships, at first I was really undecided. I didn't think like I was gonna like computer science. I thought about switching majors, but as it went on, I did some internships, found it pretty fun, so I just stuck with it.
Oh. How about you, Mr. Vargas? Was college like ever the plan?
To be quite honest, I think it was always the plan. I had a pretty decent relationship with education early on. I mean, I went to Bessie Carmichael, which is a predominantly Filipino immigrant-based community, back in the 80s and 90s, and then took on some really awesome classes in middle school and high school. I think what it really intrigued me about college was the fact that I was an only child growing up, and I was the first out of my family's generation to potentially go to college, and that was always a driving factor, right? My mom and my dad, like their highest level of education was high school, and then they entered the workforce, and just growing up as a Filipino American in downtown San Francisco, it was always like, we want you to have a better opportunity than we did. And so college was always a driving factor that was my way of manifesting that aspiration that my parents had for me.
So was college like the be all end all, like from your parents' perspective?
Yeah, I think they were like, you go to college, you get a decent paying job, end of story, you've made it. Now, what I ended up getting from college and perspectives and life paths, that wasn't determined. In their mind, it was just like, you go to college, you graduate college, you get the decent paying job, and then you make the American dream.
Right.
So it's a very simple kind of formula that they had in their mind.
Yeah, I totally relate to that. Like, I feel like Filipino parents in general, like Asian parents in general, they're always striving for that good life, right? It's always trying to make the lives of their kids better from how they used to live. Because like you would, I feel like everyone has like a common like understanding of like how parents always compared their life to theirs, and the meaning behind it is like they're only trying to like encourage you in their own way. Right. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. So I totally get that.
it's like the parents are very involved
Yes.
when it comes to the deciding factors of the next 10 years and in your life in general after you get your high school diploma.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, you would always hear the stories how they climbed mountains, swam through rivers,
Parted the Red Sea.
parted the Red Sea just to get to school. Like all those stories. Like I always like hearing those stories. Like, yeah, that's cool, man.
cool, cool story, bro.
Yeah, they turned water to wine. That's crazy.
But like that's part of like the immigrant narrative,
Yeah, exactly.
right? You know, like when we compare and contrast, you know, the American way of life to Philippine society. The Philippines has this mindset of, you know, education here compared or education in the Philippines compared to here in America, it's nothing, right? Like that's like a lot of the perception of how America was seen for immigrants coming here. And so my question is like, if given the chance, would you, if given the chance to go to college here in America or in the Philippines, would that matter?
I think it would.
Yeah.
Just because I still keep in touch with my friends from Kuwait. They're in the Philippines now,
Mm-hmm.
and like every time I come in there, like they always try to talk to me in English. Like, bro, I still speak Tagalog. Relax.
Uh-huh.
Tatagalog pa rin ako, like all that.
Right.
But like every time they bring that up, like America,
Uh-huh.
I was like, yeah, man. I'm just trying to get out of here. Meaning here, meaning the Philippines.
Mm.
It's like they're trying to get an education in the Philippines just to go here.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's always comparing what's not in there. Like I honestly think it's disappointing. I think Philippines should step up, like just everything in general regarding education.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like I'm in no position to say that since I'm also in here, but it's what I've observed with with my friends from the Philippines. It's like the only same. It's like the same concept that I hear,
Mm-hmm.
and like sometimes like I already know what they're gonna say before they even say it. It's crazy.
Have you also seen that kind of perception from like Filipinos of like education comparing their standards in the Philippines to like here? Have you seen that?
I have similar types of perspectives. I think we have to kind of look at it from a much more macro lens and understand that. I mean, we're talking about a country riddled with colonial control, right? We're
Right.
talking about a country that has had its history of Spanish colonialization, has had its history of Japanese occupation, has had its history of U.S. occupation, and even today, semi-colonial, semi-feudal conditions, right, in the Philippines. So we're talking about when we say like American education is better than that of Philippine education, we can magnify that to American commodities and products being better than Philippine products.
Mm-hmm.
We can say that the mother tongue of Tagalog or Ilocano or whatever dialect you'd like to incorporate, there's still an unspoken standard that you're expected to learn English, right? Even in a DepEd ed situation in the Philippines,
Right.
where you're still expected to learn English.
Mm-hmm.
I think all of those things are interconnected, right? In a sense that I think that's kind of the mindset that has been conditioned through years of those things.
I agree. I've seen the same situation in Kuwait. There are schools named American School in Kuwait, and they would have high expectations from these students, like because from my experience, it's those schools that you can have a full-on conversation in English. Because English, I barely used English there. I know how to ask for the bathroom in Arabic. I know how to ask for water in Arabic. I know how to ask how much it is.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of enough to get by, but like it's surprising to actually like have a full-on conversation there, because it's not the most like used language in there, but they promote it.
Hmm. Oh yeah, like you came from Kuwait, so like, you know, despite being hundreds of miles away from the archipelago or from here, there was still mindset being carried even across.
Exactly. That's what I was trying to
Continents.
say. Exactly. Like they would have, I, I'm not sure, but I think they were trying to implement like an American style of education. Not the best, not the best time, if you ask me. But yeah, that's what I saw at first before I came here. I think it was called English School of Kuwait
Wow.
of Fahil. I forgot. It's been a while. It's been a while since I've been there, since like 3 years.
So English is on the name of the school.
Yeah.
Wow.
English. Oh, my school's name was Philippine International English School. So like
Even
nice.
in the
No
Middle
beating
East,
around the bush here.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, man. But we supposed to
real
spoke
direct.
Tagalog there. They could have just said Philippine Tagalog speaking International Tagalog School.
Just
man.
might as well call it like Taglish International.
That's funny because we call it PICE.
Pice.
If you replace English with Tagalog, it's called PITS. Right?
So that's amazing. That's interesting because
That is very
Yeah, but they did teach English there under the Philippine curriculum. So we would get our stuff from DepEd from the Philippines.
right.
And books would cost a lot. Like it costs a lot because they had to pay for shipping fees and all that.
Right.
So yeah, it's expensive, but it is what it is.
But with the amount of Western influence and Western standards in Philippines and even Kuwait, right? Can we justify that into like, these Western influences and cultures is going to really help our students become professionals, careerists? Like, is there any justification for like the way Western society's culture is so ingrained in like even in the Filipino community in Kuwait, for instance, you know?
I don't know. I've never thought of it that way. It's more like it starts off with the language, I think, because it would be assumed like English is to be known by everyone. It's
Right.
like it's considered to be a universal. Like some would consider it to be a universal language. Whenever Americans would go to other countries, they would try to talk to them in English, and like some people would know, some people wouldn't, right? And you barely see that. Like you go to Europe, and Europeans come here, and like they would not expect you to speak their language, right?
Right.
It's not like vice versa, right?
Yeah.
Did you ever think about it that way? Like if an American would go to, for example, Kuwait,
Right.
and he started speaking English, they would think that some people would understand English there. But if a Kuwaiti went to America, they would not expect everyone to know how to speak Arabic, right?
Right.
It's like, if you think about it though, it's not really, it's kind of universal. That's where the standards, like, that's where like the culture starts. So yeah, I kind of see it that way.
Going back to parents and just their influence, when it comes to being a college student and just making sure you get those A's and B's or whatever, are they always hovering behind your shoulders?
Oh yeah.
And like, can you share like maybe an example of how they would be so, just on you? Like Brian, Brian, have you ever had your parents like oh, how's your grades?
Yes and no. It was mostly during, like, say, elementary school, middle school, high school. College, they were a bit more laid back. They would ask, how are you doing in college? How are your classes? Are you passing any of them? Are you failing any of them? How hard is it on you? Make sure prioritizing school. Don't focus too much on work. Work is this,
Right.
is this an extra thing you can do right now? And make sure you're focused more on school than work.
So like they trust your independence.
Yeah. Now
Now that like you're working and you're on school, is that like the rite of passage now for Filipinos? Like if you are working and you're in college, you have independence.
From the looks of it, I feel
Well, I
like
would assume just because college requires your parents to be less connected to school. You know how like high schools, I'm not sure how they do it over here. Well, actually, no, I do know because I went to Westmore for a year. like they would send you report cards, and that's how your parents would keep in touch with the grades. But in college, like you could literally show them a transcript where you photoshopped A into everything.
Oh,
Believe me, I've done that.
You heard it here, here first.
Damn.
Confessions of a
Dang.
shark.
Dang, I put myself on the spot.
Caught you lacking in
Yeah,
4K.
well, okay, because I had experiences in high school. Actually, not high school, grade school to high school. Like they would always compare you to a kid they know that has all A's, and I hated that. Like, oh my god, like I have an 80. Like, how do you have 86 on Plumas, like the Filipino language?
Right.
You speak Tagalog, you should know. Like, yeah. I didn't know I didn't know what to say. Like, right?
It's a tendency for parents, or at least Filipino parents, to like compare cousins.
I know.
yeah.
Have you ever had that experience of like cousins just being better than
He
you?
might have been that cousin.
Are you the cousin? No.
You know, it was really interesting growing up. I think, you know, definitely in my younger years, I did feel like there was this interesting kind of comparison. I was one out of many of my cousins who lived in the area who kind of like didn't pursue the traditionalist path of most of my cousins, right?
Mhm.
Most of my cousins were products of private school. They went to a Catholic school, right? There's this place called St. Joseph is no longer opened, you know, in the south of Market. And everyone I knew that was related to me went to St. Joseph. I was the public school kid. I went to Bessie Carmichael. And I think there was some benefits there, right? Being the singleton that went to Bessie Carmichael, I was not I wasn't always compared to my cousins. But I think there was that unspoken thing, like, you know, people go to private school. There's this notion of it's better school. And it still exists today, right? There's this notion, this assumption like, oh, private school, better. Public school, not as good. And having to deal with those things growing up was really interesting. But being an only child and being the only child in public school in my immediate family, not so much in regards to comparison. Obviously, when I got grades that started to dip, then my parents would be on me. But it's also weirdly enough that when I was doing amazing and I was like doing pretty decent in school, then you get no response. I was like,
Right?
okay, you're doing okay. Great. I'm not going to touch you.
All right, you're
Okay.
off the hook.
Your grades are dipping. Let's talk.
Okay, wait.
Exactly. And so, you know, I think when you bring back those written kind of like progress reports, like to me, it kind of recycles some trauma for me
Oh, yeah.
because I'm always waiting at the mailbox for those grades. But yeah,
that nerve wracking. Like,
exactly.
When they get like, because what we had in Kuwait, the parents had to meet the teachers themselves once every 4 quarters of the school.
to actually know the grades.
Yeah, so like, I would be sitting in my chair in the room, like, they would be talking. I don't want to sit with them, like,
Oh my goodness.
like, and then
Wow.
like, what they say, and like, I remember that my dad would look at me like, it's okay.
Like that's it. The two words,
God.
the 2 letters of okay. So coming back to the conversation we had about, you know, language, colonialism, and how Philippine society as a whole is, let's say, it's not perfect. Let's go with that. But here in the States, you know, especially now, Filipino American History Month, we are in that crossroads where we're finally really understanding how Philippine society is, was, and where we're headed. And so I want to bring up this news. So according to a New York Times opinion article written by columnist J. Caspian Kang, link gonna be on the bio if y'all want to check that out. On October 8th, Governor Newsom of California signed Assembly Bill 101, which, starting with the class of 2030, will require every public and charter high school student in the state to take an ethnic studies course before graduation. So before we even start talking about ethnic studies, my dear guest here is an expert in ethnic studies. Can you provide your like a brief summary or explanation of what ethnic studies really is?
Yeah. So, obviously, I've been through multiple ethnic studies conferences and, conversations. And some of these can last days, right?
Right.
So I guess to boil it down in a nutshell, one thing I'd like to emphasize about ethnic studies is it really is about learning of the world through a shift in narrative and perspective, right? And so, one of the things that ethnic studies really points out is, in a society that we live in, dictated by power and privilege, whose narratives are usually propped in traditionalist education, right? So we're looking at education that historically has been founded upon a Eurocentric lens, has been founded upon the victors of colonial expansion. What of those narratives of the marginalized people of the world, right? And so it's really about reclaiming that sense of narrative in when you talk about ethnic studies. I was very privileged to be a byproduct of San Francisco State University that has its own rich history of ethnic studies, right? Through the Third World Liberation Front and the struggle that happened in that college. Thus was created the first College of Ethnic Studies at San Francisco State. Years down the line, decades later, I myself take my first ethnic studies course, Filipinos in America, taught by Professor Dan Gonzalez. And for the first time ever, I'm experiencing that educational experience from that of a narrative of people that look like me.
Right.
And my relationship with education at that moment in time had changed. And then I had taken other ethnic studies courses. Right, I can name drop a whole bunch of different people, but my relationship and ownership with education changed at that moment. So, ethnic studies did change the course of my relationship with education, and is a big reason why I'm teaching today. Right. So, I guess that's in a nutshell what we can say.
So, in essence, ethnic studies is a deeper understanding of a different lens of narrative that is usually not shown.
Absolutely.
When it comes to like how in the umbrella of history of Western society or colonial I guess influence, there's those subjects like African Americans, Filipino Americans, their stories are not as projected under that umbrella, but under ethnic studies, they're provided with that deeper scope.
Absolutely.
So, my question for us, fellow college students, right now is: have you ever questioned why so much of the history we're taught in public school, right? Like for instance, here in Daly City, there's a lot of us. There's a hell of Filipinos. 33% of the Daly City population is Filipinos. Yeah. That's a lot. That's a dense concentration of Filipino Americans in one urban area, and yet our history wasn't as projected. Did you guys ever like question that or ever like think about that?
Yeah, I actually had an experience with that one. It was second period U.S. history at Westmore High School, 2019. It was like my second week into senior high. It was a sophomore class. Everyone was sophomores. And one of the worksheets that the teacher of the class gave us was name 2 literature that caused some sort of revolution.
I know it.
I keep telling you this. And my 2 answers, like I was not familiar. I was not familiar with any literature in U.S. history. So what did I put? El filibusterismo and no limitangere. And when I got the paper back, I got a question mark like, like you don't know my, I don't know your culture, you don't know mine. Like I was just like, this is like my second week in high school.
Right.
So I didn't know what to say. Like I could have put, to be fair, I could have put the Constitution. But can you blame me? Like I went to a Philippine school under the Philippine curriculum, so I was studying Philippine history for most of my high school and grade school life.
Right.
And the moment I got the paper back, I was just laughing. I was like, really? Could you even ask me what it was, you know?
Yeah.
Because like if you ask any Filipino that's very aware of Filipino history, these two books are what actually woke Filipinos up against the Spanish rule with like what 333 years. That's a long time.
Right.
That's 1/3 of 1,000 years, right? Exactly. Like when I got the paper, I was like,
Yeah, it's like
I was just laughing. Like, yeah, I think I took a picture of it, but I deleted the the picture when I changed phones. I wanted to send it to my classmates back in the Philippines. Hey, bro, look at this.
look at this uncultured.
Uncultured people, man. Like, it's like salt and pepper. Add some chipotle or something. Chipotle sauce or something.
But yeah, let's think about that though. Like when it comes to that question, people can say the Federalist Papers by Hamilton or
I would not have known that at the time.
Right.
Like, Federalist Papers, like what?
or like Lenin's or sorry, Marx and Engels' Communist Manifesto, or maybe in the Civil War, Uncle Tom's Cabin was a book that kind of ignited the war.
and No Limitangere,
and yeah, No Limitangere.
Oh wait, what?
Like they know all of these other like historical books and pieces of literature that sparked gunfights and wars, but like when it comes to like a little archipelago's rich history,
especially as like 33% of the city's population is
Right.
composed of the culture that they need to know about.
yeah,
I think that was an issue when I first saw it. I just laughed at it. Like
Right.
I didn't know what to like think at the time. I just realized like, oh yeah, like after I finished high school here, like you would learn about World War 1, 2, and 3.
Mhm.
Oh no, 3. Sorry.
coming soon.
But yeah, no, hopefully not, bro. We're healthy young men in here
In financial debt.
in financial debt.
Yeah.
But yeah, you would learn a lot of histories and all that, but you would never learn about like Lapu-Lapu and Magellan's battle.
Yeah.
Gomborza, and there's a lot of those that I feel like every Filipino should know in here.
So, my last question for this segment goes out to you, Vargas, as someone who, is really who personifies ethnic studies and its legacy for, just putting the studies into practice.
Yeah.
Right. How important is learning about history, especially if that history is your own?
Deep question.
Right?
Great question. Great way to close out.
Extra credit?
And we can go as long as we need, so I'll stretch if I need to.
Okay.
I think it returns me back to a motto that I think I live and breathe by, and it's this notion of no history, no self. No history, no self, right? And so what I mean by that is essentially, I could trace it back to what I had said earlier. My relationship to education at one point in time had a much more deeper purpose. The moment I was able to see myself
Right.
in the education that I was being given, right?
Mhm.
And in that moment, not only was I feeling a narrative that I has always been deprived of,
Mhm.
I wanted to learn more, right? And I think that's the part that I think ethnic studies really unlocked in that period of my life. And when I talk about learning more to me did not necessarily mean taking more classes. That's definitely what I did, right? I took a myriad of different classes. I mean, I minored in Asian American Studies, so a good amount of my classes were about learning about other Asian people. I also took, African American Studies, right? I also took some Latin American Studies, and at that point was where I start to understand what it meant to embrace this concept known as internationalism, right? Embracing the contributions of worldly peoples for the benefit of mankind, right? And I think that allowed me to see a lens outside of just essentially being what does America do to benefit the world, but what does the world do to benefit the world? And I felt like that was the moment that I started to see that. And then, like I said, my pursuit of knowledge even intensified beyond that. For many of I also delved into hip hop music around the time of college. I did it since high school, but more intentionally in college. And even my music started to be transformative. It was reflective of the ethnic studies that I was learning, right? Instead of rhyming about the stupid stuff I was doing in high school, right? It now became stories about, a veteran, right? It now became stories about growing up in the South of Market, a predominantly immigrant working class community, riddled with a lot of Filipinos, with a lot of rich history, like the I Hotel, right? Talking about, the impacts of imperialism on the Philippines, and even getting a chance to perform that song, like in front of this thing called the People's Sona, right? Which is the State of the Nation address in the Philippines, which is a response to that of what people deem as the bogus State of the Nation address, right? Where the president says everything's cool, and the People's Sona is like, well, here's what we think. And being able to perform that song and as a reflection of what I've learned about the conditions in the Philippines, like that is ethnic studies. It's a living, breathing manifestation. I've known a lot of you through our work in Filipino Barkada. And the reason Filipino Barkada exists is because it is a placeholder for ethnic studies in a time where ethnic studies is not at this point in our classrooms. And I respect that. I think we're doing the best we can. I'm definitely putting in some work with the district to try and really make that more institutionalized in the next coming years, especially after that Gavin Newsom thing.
Right.
But we have been holding it down. And though it hasn't been traditionally in a period of 1 through 6, we've had a lot of extracurricular opportunities to learn about our history, to be proud of our legacy of our ancestors, and to promote Kapwa and our sense of community at Westmore. So that's our way of addressing that 33% that we've been talking about, is that there are spaces. And if there's no spaces that the institution provides you, then you make space. And I think that's what we've been doing.
Just like that. And in essence, Filipino American History Month is about not just learning about history, it is about making history in real time. And we're doing that every day, no matter how big or small. So to end the episode, I do have a special segment just to get to know our guest a little bit more. I'd like to call this segment Cornered. So since usually I would give the guest a minute to answer these questions, but since you're special, we'll give you 2 minutes. Okay. So you'll have 2 minutes to answer as much questions as you can.
Let's go.
So
bring it.
Mark, get set. Let's go. Morning or night person?
Definitely night person.
How do you like your eggs?
Sunny side up.
Go-to music genre when you're pissed?
Metal.
When you're happy?
Hip hop.
Your go-to person to talk to about chismis?
Ooh.
Gossip.
Mr. Murphy.
Shout out Mr. Murphy. Mr. Murphy. Stress eating go-to choice?
Wingstop.
Ooh. Fast food or home food?
Fast food Friday, which is what I'm going to do today.
All right. Your favorite go-to then for fast food?
I would say right off the bat, right now, Max's.
Favorite room in your house?
Bedroom.
Family show. It's a family show.
Oh, we are?
Go to a restaurant with your wifey.
Let's see. I think we like gat pho.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
That sounds good.
Chicken, pork, or beef.
Depends on the dish, but I would say pork right off the bat.
Worst vegetable.
Worst vegetable.
You have 3 passes. I forgot to tell you that.
Pass.
Coffee or tea?
Coffee.
Nice.
How do you like your coffee?
I like my coffee hot, house way. Anything from Phil's.
Hey, shout out Phil's.
Phil's.
One person alive you want to interview.
Keisha David.
One
Teacher
person
of
dead
ethnic studies.
you want to spend the whole day with.
Let's see. Datu Lapu Lapu.
Buhay.
Buhay.
What would you do for a Klondike bar?
I would pry open my wallet to get a Klondike bar.
If forced to, pick one color you'd wear your whole life.
Red and blue.
Red!
I was gonna say it.
How would you like your steak?
Medium rare.
How would you like your wine?
I don't really drink wine.
Ugh. How would you like your chicken?
Cajun.
One woman you look up to.
One woman I look up to is my mom.
One man you look up to.
Fernando.
Oh,
Daddy.
plastic. One ceiling you like to look up to.
Ceiling? This one.
You like that
so
ceiling?
Cool. Nice.
Era of history you want to visit for a whole week.
Ooh. Cultural Revolution China?
Oh, dang.
Funniest TV show.
Oh man, this is a hard one. I will have to say right now, my moment, Kim's Convenience.
Oh, I love that show.
Ooh.
Tearjerker movie.
Tearjerker is in sadness?
Yeah,
or-
like the one to make you cry.
Oh my gosh. Up?
Oh, good. Most annoying song.
Annoying song. Rickroll. Sorry.
Book that made you feel stupid.
Joseph Conrad's Heart of Darkness.
Favorite Tagalog word.
I tried next.
Tagumpay.
Favorite English word.
Let's see. Der.
Favorite cuss word.
F word. So versatile.
Word.
Word.
Thank you so much, Mr. Vargas,
Word.
for being here.
Thank
And
you.
that is it for our third and last episode for Kuyas Korner for October. But we will be back for more in November. We just want to say thank you guys so much for being with us for this whole month of culture, of history, of knowledge, of just mic drops everywhere. And we want to say thank you, Mr. Vargas, for giving us the time of day, for just making us more rich with knowledge and with your experience. Thank you guys again. Remember, subscribe, like, comment, hate comment. It's fine. We like it. It's okay. And remember to follow our Instagram at Kuyas Korner. Once again, thank you guys so much. Until then, paalam.
Peace.
It's still rolling, right?
I'm sorry.
I wanted to show Vargas my Duterte impression, man.
Oh, do it.
Do it.
To the people of the Philippines.
We'll kill you.
Yung COVID na yan. Pag nakita ko yung COVID na yan, babay. Huwag niyo kong niloloko. Tawa ka diyan.
Wow, that's so good.
I got it from my brother's friend, which now lives in Texas. But yeah, I got the inspiration from him. Thank you, Jerick. But yeah, it's pretty good.
Talking to me in Mountain View. Wow, that was fun. Hey, good. So fun, you guys. I wish it was longer.
Brian, 3, 2, 1.